Chapter 10. Michael rushed Mia out of her classroom as soon as school was over. Dad said he was interviewing the woman at 3 o'clock, he said. The one who wants to adopt Otis. We have to hurry home. Why? Mia asked, pulling on her backpack. Dad might need our help, Michael said. I found a whole list of questions on the internet so we can tell if she's the right owner for Otis. What about guitar class? Asked Mia. Michael shook his head. Otis is more important than my guitar class. At least he is today. They ran out to the front doors and raced down to the sidewalk, and they neared home. Michael noticed a small brown dog tied to an iron fence in front of their building. It doesn't look like any breed in particular, just a happy little mutt. Hey, boy, he said. The dog let out a big, friendly woof. His tongue hung out and his tail whipped back and forth. Whoa, Michael said as the dog jumped up on him. I just need to get in the gate, fella. Michael let Mia slide through ahead of him. There's a dog tied to our fence, Michael heard Mia say once he was inside. He's mine, said the unfamiliar voice. Michael guessed it came from the woman who wanted to adopt Otis. His name is Ruffy. That's a good name for him, Michael said as he came into the room. Ruffy's owner looked nice. She had blonde hair pulled back into a ponytail and a friendly smile. Hey, guys, Dad said from his rocking chair. You're home early. Michael wanted to help, Mia said. Yeah, Michael said, I've made a list of questions so we can figure out if Otis would be a good kitten for you. He pulled out a piece of paper out of his backpack, ready to start down his list. Number 1, he began, but Dad interrupted. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. He held up his hands and turned to their guests. Julie, these are my kids, Michael and Mia. They're pretty crazy about Otis. That's great, Julie said. He's a lucky kitten. Her smile softened. Why do you want to adopt a kitten? Michael went ahead and asked the question number 1. Julie looked surprised. Well, she began, I wanted to get a friend for Ruffy. I thought it might help him calm down a little. Michael pictured the dog. He was cute, but he was also hyper and loud. Michael had a feeling that Otis would be too crazy about living with Ruffy. He took a deep breath, trying to figure out how to say without hurting Julie's feelings. It's okay, Michael, Dad said. It didn't take us long to realize that Julie and Ruffy wouldn't be the best family for Otis. Ruffy scared Otis when he came in, Julie said. Otis ran to the back of the house. She motioned to Michael's room. That's why I tied Ruffy outside. Julie and I were just saying goodbye, Dad explained. Oh, Michael said. Okay then, well, it was nice meeting you. He gave Julie a quick wave and hurried to his room to find Otis. Mia followed him. Otis, Michael called. You all right, buddy? Michael got down on his knees and looked under the bed. Sure enough, Otis was huddled up in the far corner. He looked back at Michael with wide, frightened eyes. It's the boy and girl. I'm glad to see them. I'm sure staying put. I'll stay right here until I know for sure the dog is gone. How are we going to get him out? Mia asked. I guess we'll have to just give him time, Michael said. We don't want to reach in for him. He wouldn't like that. They waited for a few minutes, but Otis didn't come out. Michael put some music on his iPad, but the kitten stayed under the bed. Finally, Mia got bored and left, and a little while, Otis came tiptoeing out. Michael scooped him up in his lap and petted him under his chin, smiling when he felt the familiar tickle of the cat's purr. When Otis fell asleep, Michael laid him onto the shirt by the speakers. Then he got out his guitar to practice a little. Guitar class must be almost over by now. In a way, he was sorry that he skipped it. If only he'd had the chance to show the picture to Pete. He stammered softly, and Otis barely stirred in his sleep. A little later, Dad called down the hallway. You guys want a snack? Before Michael or Mia could respond, the doorbell rang. Oh, that must be the other person who was called about adopting Otis. I'll get him. What, Dad? Michael called. If Julie's not taking him, we want Pete to have him, Mia yelled. Michael heard her run out of her room, pound down the hall after Dad. Michael flopped down on his bed, too mad to even see who the other person was. He couldn't believe that Dad would let someone else see Otis. How could he? A few minutes later, Michael heard footsteps heading towards the room. Otis must have heard them, too, because he woke up and dashed back under the bed. Stay under there, Otis, Michael whispered. If you can't find you, they can't take you away. Then he heard a familiar voice. Where's the little dude? I think he's in Michael's room, said Dad. Hey, Michael, Pete's here. Pete appeared in the doorway. Mia ducked her head under his elbow, and Dad stood just behind them. As always, Pete had his guitar slung over his shoulder. Michael sat up. What are you doing here? Your dad gave me a great photo this morning. Pete pulled the picture out of his back pocket and looked at it, thanking for the printing it out. Thanks for printing it out. I helped, Mia said. She looked up at Pete and smiled. Yeah, Mia helped, Michael said. He fiddled with the seam on his pillow. Peter still hadn't explained why he was there. I guess seeing this picture made me miss Otis, Pete said. I came over as soon as I was done with guitar class. Otis missed you too, Michael said. He sat up, straightened. He had all kinds of things to tell Pete, and now was the time to do it. You know, Otis doesn't like to sleep when it's too quiet, so I played my iPod for him, and I slept in my room all night. I bet he really liked your guitar playing. He was just scared of the drums. Pete nodded, smiling. I had a feeling it might be drums, he said. I was thinking I could ask one of my friends if he could host band practice for a while. That would give Otis more time to feel at home. I don't think I give us enough of a chance. With a little time, I think we can really be good together. You mean you're going to adopt him? Michael said. Pete grinned. I was thinking I might, and now that you're telling me that he does like music after all, I definitely want to. If I pass the Batelli test, that is, he said. We'd all be happy if you adopted Otis, Dad said. Dad's right, but first you have to get him out from under the bed, Mia said. She bent down and peeked at the kitten. Pete sat down on the floor. Let's test Michael's theory. We'll see if he really likes music. Pete unzipped his case, pulled out his guitar. Hey, Otis, he said, will you come out and play? Pete stammered a few chords and hummed along. Michael peered under the bed to look at Otis. The kitten's whiskers twitched and his eyes were shining. Oh, that guy with the low voice is back? Maybe that he scared the dog away. I like the sounds he's making. I'll see if the coast is clear. There he is. Pete practically sung the words as Otis crept out from under the bed. Kitten looked around and sniffed the air. He kneaded the carpet with his paws, then walked over to Pete, climbed into his lap, and began to purr in time to the music. I had a feeling this guy would come back. I had a real good feeling. Pete put down the guitar and picked up Otis. Hey, little dude, he said as he touched his nose to Otis's. I think we could have lots of fun together. Want to come home with me? With all the excitement, Mom said, poking her head in the door. Hey, Pete. Mom, Pete is going to adopt Otis, Mia said. Well, I'm glad to hear it, Mom said. She looked at Michael with a knowing smile. Michael watched as Mia dangling a string just out of Otis's reach. The kitten leapt for it. Otis looked proud when he caught it in his mouth. Michael smiled. Jackson was right. His family really was a team. If Mom hadn't had an idea to put up posters, if Mia hadn't taken a great picture of Pete and Otis together, if Dad hadn't given it to Pete, and if Michael hadn't told Pete that Otis really did like music, then Otis might still be looking for a home. But they all worked together, and look what happened. Michael couldn't wait to find out what kind of kitty his team would foster next.